am the new generation of scary stories. It's time to retire the boring, emotionless voiceovers. With my voice and melody, you will experience the full spectrum of emotions. Subscribe if you like my videos, and also send me your scary stories to my email. And please indicate how you would like me to introduce you in the video. Good luck.
I'm from Sri Lanka. I am 26 years old and I'm a Buddhist. Now and this is my first time sharing something online, especially a story like this. It's about the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me. Back when I was in high school, I've wanted to write it down for years, but every time I tried, something got in the way. Well, here it goes. This happened when I was in grade 10 or 11. My younger brother and I shared a bed back then. He was in grade 6 or 7. Before I get into it, let me paint the picture. Our room faced the main Colombo Candy Road. The bed was shoved into a corner, headboard against the wall. At the foot of the bed, there was a tiny gap, maybe 2 feet, between us and a wardrobe pressed tight against the wall. On the other side was the door to the room. Right by the door sat an old iron table with one short leg. So if you bumped it, it'd wobble and make a loud dottas sound because it couldn't stay steady. Okay, here's where it starts. That night, my brother and I climbed into bed around 9:30 or 10. I couldn't sleep. It was hot and sticky, and I was restless. My brother, though, seemed to nod off fast. Through the curtain on our door, I could see the living room light still glowing. About 30 minutes after we got in bed, my mom, dad, and sisters turned off the lights and went to sleep too. I shut my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Buzz heat, buzz sweat, it was brutal. I tried so hard to dozy off, but no, hours dragged by, maybe 2 or 3, and I was still awake. By then, the road outside was completely quiet, not a single car passing. Then, out of the blue, I heard it, footsteps inside the house. So, steady steps, like someone in shoes walking on the tiled floor coming from the living room toward our room. No hurry, just come and getting louder, closer. My heart pounded. The sound stopped right at our door. I kept my eyes squeezed shut, too terrified to look, and pulled the sheet over my head like it'd protect me. For a bit, it was dead silent. Then, all of a sudden, the table in our room went dottas, like something bumped it. Now I knew someone was there. Forget the heat. I was sweating from pure fear, shaking under the sheet. I wanted to peek, but I was petrified. Finally, I couldn't stand it. Acting like I was asleep, I slid the sheet down and cracked my eyes open just a bit. I couldn't believe it. A man was sitting on the table. He looked like he was dressed for a job interview. Long pants, a tucked-in long-sleeve shirt. His hair was kinda long, brushing his shoulders. With my eyes half open, I couldn't make out his face clearly, but there he was, one leg up on a chair, the other on the floor, hand on his hip, staring at our bed. I wanted to yell, but my voice was gone. I tried over and over. Nothing came out. I couldn't even turn to my brother. My body felt like a rock. Panic came. I shut my eyes again and yanked the sheet back over my head. I was trembling now, scared out of my mind. Minutes passed, maybe more, and I didn't hear a sound. My brother shifted in his sleep next to me, but that was it. I had to check again, still pretending to be out cold. I eased the sheet down and peeked at the table. He was gone. I felt a flicker of relief, but then thought, where'd he go? I lowered the sheet more and glanced at the wardrobe by our feet. There he was, standing right at the edge of the bed, looking down at us. Tall, maybe 6 feet, dressed sharp like before. The wardrobe was 6 feet too. and he matched its height perfectly. Sweat drenched me, but I felt ice cold, stuck in place. My brother kept tossing around, clueless. I couldn't even nudge him. My arm wouldn't move. Desperate, I squeezed my eyes shut again, thinking, whatever happens, let it be. After a while, I forced myself to look. I tilted my head down, cracked my eyes, and checked the foot of the bed. He wasn't there. No sounds anywhere. I glanced at the table. Empty. My heart lightened a bit. Whoever he was, he's gone, I thought, feeling safer. I fixed my pillow and looked up. That's when I saw something I'll never forget. Ever. Typing this now. My hands are shaking. My ears feel frozen. I told you our bed was right against the wall, with maybe an inch of space behind it. Nobody could fit there. But when I looked up, there he was. The same long-haired guy, perched on the headboard, leaning over me. His face so close to mine, there couldn't have been more than a foot between us. That's all I remember. I think I blacked out. Next thing I knew, it was morning. My brother wasn't beside me, still in bed. I tried to figure it out. What happened last night? Dream or real? I was dead sure it was real, but I tried telling myself it was a nightmare to calm down. My head throbbed, and I felt feverish. Groggy, I stumbled out of bed and into the living room. It was empty, but I heard my mom and brother chatting in the kitchen. I went to tell my mom what I'd seen, still half convincing myself it was fake. But what I heard in there turned my shaky fever into full-blown chills. My brother was telling my mom, Emma, last night some guy came into our room. He was by the table first. Then he went over to Ayaz, Aya means elder brother in my language, side and leaned right over his face. I shut my eyes. I was terrified. When I looked again, he was by the wardrobe. I turned away, too scared to scream, though I tried. Later, I peeked, and he was on the bed, leaning over Aya's face, staring at him. I clamped my eyes shut and must have passed out. For a whole month after, we played Buddhist Purif chants. It's like Christian prayers in our room non-stop. Nothing weird happened again. But get this, before that night, my older sister had told us something too. She said one afternoon while napping, someone grabbed her hair and pulled her off the bed, telling her to get down. We laughed, thinking she was joking. After this, though, we weren't so sure. Some might believe this is true, others might say it's nonsense. Up to you, but I've still got questions that haunt me. How did he lean over me like that without falling? How could anyone feed in that tiny space behind the bed? What was that? For a long time after, I was terrified to sleep. Every time I climbed into bed, I'd lie there, heart racing, scared I'd see that man again, staring down at me in the dark. Okay, so a little backstory here. Yesterday, my dad asked me to go with him to the hospital because he forgot some of his stuff in his office or wherever, and it was at like 10 p.m. My dad is an internist in a hospital. The hospital has buildings for different departments. G1 for heart diseases, one for lung issues, and so on and so on. My dad wanted to speak the head of department. IDK what department though? Just a little chit-chat on basic stuff. But in order to reach him, we had to go through building J9 or something like that, I think, and from J9, we go to the head of department HOD. So we went into J9, basically unfinished building that is abandoned for now, I think, and is in construction, I believe. Or maybe will never be constructed, just in its current state. We went in and it was pitch black. My dad got his phone flashlight and we walked and walked. While walking in pitch black, we saw a guy walking towards us. He looked Indian kind of. He had a beard that was extremely long. He had very long hair that was sitting upwards, on the two sides only, and in the middle there was no hair. The man was walking and just staring at us without saying a word. My dad said, "Hey, can you open the lights here?" My dad guessed he worked at the building and asked him to turn on the lights since it was pitch black. The man just stared and went into the elevator in the building. My dad was confused but didn't think much about it. We then went to the HOD and stayed there for like 30 minutes because he and my dad spoke about random things. After that, my dad wanted to go up to his office, or TV it's called, to get the stuff he forgot, and the fastest way to go was through the elevator in J9 that the man we encountered went up. We pressed the button for elevator. The elevator arrived. Only to our surprise, the man we encountered was in the elevator 30 minutes after he went in the first time. He was just there. We got in the elevator and pressed my dad's office floor. The man was just staring at me and my dad back and forth. Without speaking, I side-eyed my dad like, "Why is this dude staring at us like that?" And suddenly the elevator stopped working. My dad called that HOD and said, "Hey, the elevator stopped working on us." HOD said, "Just press the emergency button. It should work." My dad asked him, "Who's the guy working in J9? I talked to him and he hasn't said a word and is just staring at me and my son in the elevator now." The HOD was confused and said, "No one works at J9. My dad just said, "All right." He didn't think much of it. My dad told me to press the emergency button. The dude was standing in front of the buttons, so I had to press the emergency button behind him, kinda lean my hands behind him and press the emergency button. Then the elevator worked, and the dude kept staring back and forth at me, then my dad, at me, then my dad. My dad started waving to the dude and said, "You okay?" The dude just stared back and forth at me, then my dad, me, then my dad. After 5 seconds, the elevator arrived to my dad's floor. We got out of the elevator and the guy was still in the elevator. Me and my dad got out to grab his mug and his laptop, which took us like 10 seconds. We got back to the elevator to go down to my dad's car and back home, and the elevator hasn't moved since we left it. When we pressed the button and elevator arrived, the elevator door opened and the man wasn't there. I started freaking out on where he was and couldn't process on how he wasn't there. The elevator HASNT moved. I asked my dad where the guy was. He was confused and said, "I don't even know." We went down and back to our car and didn't see him again.
This isn't my story, but my uncle's story. He told me this story a few days ago. Since we were sharing stories and experiences with each other, I asked him eventually about what was the creepiest, scariest thing that's ever happened to him. What I'm about to tell you is his story that's the weirdest and most disturbing thing that he's ever experienced. This story takes place back in the late 90s, when my uncle was attending college at Sacramento State University at the time. During his time there, he would often walk around the campus to get his steps in for the day. Other days, he would sit underneath a tree or on the tables at the outdoor dining area to chat with his friends or finish up his schoolwork. One day, while he was sitting under a tree doing his schoolwork, is when it happened. My uncle was minding his business when he had seen someone walking towards him in his peripheral vision. He didn't think much of it at first, as he thought it was someone just walking past him. He then noticed that the person was much closer to him, being about 15 feet away from him. He hears a woman's voice say hello to him, which he turns around to see who it is. To this day, he says when he looked at her, she was probably one of the most drop-dead gorgeous ladies he's ever seen. He describes her with vibrant blue eyes, long flowing blonde hair, wore a pretty dark green dress, and overall had siren-like beauty to her. He continued staring at her in awe and confusion for a moment until he found his voice. He soon asked her if she needed any help with anything, which she replied by saying yes, and that she wants to chat with him. With my uncle being single at the time, he saw no harm in talking to some girl. He did, however, felt like something was off with her, but he couldn't exactly tell what it was. He decides to talk with her, but to be cautious about it. He asks the lady for her name, and she replied that it's Kelly. My uncle also asks Kelly, what does she want to talk about? And she replies that she thinks he's cute and wants to hang out with him, if he doesn't mind. My uncle nervously agrees, and they began to talk with each other. My uncle says that, surprisingly, that they had pretty good chemistry and shared a lot in common when they hung out together that day. Kelly asks my uncle if he wants to hang out with her again, which he responds with a yes. My uncle asks her if it would be all right if they hung out at the mall, which she happily agreed. Kelly hugs him and said that she can't wait to hang out with him again. Fast forward a few days later, my uncle goes to the mall and sees that Kelly was waiting for him there. They spent a few hours at the mall, and everything went over smoothly, with no problems. My uncle and Kelly continued to hang out with no problem until the third week. During one of their times when they were together, Kelly asked him if he would be interested in wanting to join a special underground club that she's in. My uncle asks her what was it about and where it's located at. Kelly explained to him that it's a friendship club about getting closer with your friends and building a deeper bonds through fun activities. My uncle asks what activities, and she says she doesn't want to tell, as it'll ruin the surprise she has for him. He asked her when the club meeting will be happening, and she replied by saying a few days from now. She also gives him the address and says that she can't wait to see him. My uncle had looked up the address that night when he got home and had saw it was in a sketchy part of downtown. Fast forward to the day of the club meeting, my uncle made his way to the downtown area. He found the place where the supposed meeting was to be held at, but immediately got bad vibes from it. The address had led him to an old, decrepit, ran-down building that looked like it hadn't been used in years. He knocks on the door, and a man wearing a dark blue robe answered the door. My uncle says that he's here for the meeting and asked if Kelly is here. The man gave him an odd look, studying him, and told him to come in and that Kelly would be there soon. Upon entering the building, my uncle says it was rather nice on the inside, but was dimly lit in there. He said there were these weird lights on the wall, and that there were 5 other people in the room wearing the same dark blue robes. My uncle looks ahead and noticed a long corridor with a row of weird lamps on both sides. The corridor seemed to stretch on for quite a bit until he noticed that it went down. The robed man tells my uncle to follow him and that the meeting will start soon once everything is settled. The robed man leads him to the end of the corridor, which leads down a short flight of stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a small path that led to an old wooden door. The path that led to the door was practically pitch black. My uncle had contemplated about turning around and walking away, but something told him not to. They went downstairs and through the door, which led down to another corridor, with the same weird lamps. My uncle remembered saying how this corridor had so many doors, along with many turns, that he swore he was walking through a maze of some sort. The both of them stopped at one of the doors, which the man had opened, and told my uncle to step in. My uncle peeked his head in the room and felt his heart skip a beat when he saw what was in there. He said the room was empty, except for an old wooden chair sitting dead center of the room, along with a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling that barely lit up the room. The robed man told my uncle to have a seat, to wait there for about 10 to 15 minutes, and that someone will come and get him, and that Kelly should also be arriving at the same time as well. My uncle reluctantly stepped in and went to sit on the chair. The door closed and said he'll be back soon. My uncle had gotten up from the chair and decided to explore the room to see if he could find anything. He was looking around until he noticed something on one of the walls. He looked and thought it was either some random stain or drawing until he realized it wasn't. As he got closer to it, he saw that someone had painted something on the wall with black paint. He looked at it a little more carefully this time and felt his blood run cold when he saw what it was. There on one of the walls was a pentagram symbol that someone had made with what appeared to be some dry blood marks as well. At that point, my uncle had seen enough and knew he had to get out of there immediately. My uncle opened the door carefully and as quietly as he could and began to quickly make his way out of there. While navigating the corridors, he heard a very loud, frantic pounding from one of the doors. He stopped momentarily to see if it was anyone that needed help, but there was no yelling, screaming, or cries for help. He wanted to investigate, but his gut told him to ignore it and to get out of there. He eventually found the door, went through it and up the stairs, and sprinted out of the door. Oddly enough, the 5 other robed men he saw earlier weren't there, so he was relieved that he didn't have to deal with them, since he said he wouldn't have known what he would have done at that moment. During the rest of his time at college, he never saw or heard of Kelly again, or whatever her real name was. My uncle never called the cops, and regrets it, as he'll never know if they got caught, who those people really were, and what they were going to do to him. My uncle firmly believes that he was going to either be initiated or sacrificed by some blood cult or satanic cult. He believes that Kelly was used as a lure in order to gain trust and to lower anyone's guard, as to lure my uncle or any other unfortunate person. After that experience, he didn't go downtown for a very long time afterwards, out of fear by being spotted by one of those cult members. My uncle is forever grateful that he was fortunate enough to escape, as he doesn't know, and shudders at the thought of what would have happened to him if he stuck around or if he hadn't escaped.